Okay, so this is the practical application section of the recovery module. So number one, what are your top 3 things that you have a maladaptive or harmful pattern of use with? So again, I encourage you to actually pause and think this through and write down what this would be for you. For the purposes of this example, I'm just going to talk about one for myself because it would take forever for me to go through 3 of them. But I'm going to talk about caffeine and my addiction to caffeine. It's kind of immediate, like I am addicted to it, but I also am my body's very sensitive to it. So like I can't drink like coffee or anything that has a lot of caffeine content, or I'll get a little too stimulated and kind of get a slightly manicky. Um, and my body will feel very anxious. But I do have a pretty strong attachment to matchas. Matcha lattes are my thing. Um, it's hard to let go of that. So we're going to talk about caffeine. All right. And number 2, what are some thoughts, emotions, sensations, or experiences that you are afraid of having if you were to stop this pattern of use, such as fear, sadness, boredom, loneliness, self-critical thoughts, physical or psychological pain, etc. For me, with caffeine, I'm afraid of feeling like understimulated or bored, because caffeine stimulates your adrenal glands and then also like your heart. And so when it's understimulated, you kind of feel just like I feel very like numb, very apathetic. I have a lack of motivation, so you can imagine that's really hard for me to like get work tasks done without that. I just feel kind of detached from everything. Just very low energy. And I don't like feeling that way, and it makes it hard to be productive. So, number 3, what are the main consequences of your pattern of use? For me, it's using caffeine. It activates my sympathetic nervous system when it doesn't need to be activated. I've been in a state of like chronic stress and trauma for so long that my body's already prone. Like I have what's called dysautonomia. So my autonomic nervous system is kind of already primed to be activated into the sympathetic side like way too much. And so I'm trying to decrease that. And so when you drink caffeine or consume caffeine in whatever way, you are activating your sympathetic nervous system. And what that means is then you're going to start a higher production of cortisol. It's going to make your adrenal glands start, pumping adrenaline, that kind of stuff. And so if you do that too much over time, it will start to lead to adrenal fatigue, which can make you experience chronic fatigue. And so when you're not using caffeine, you'll feel even more tired. Like your body just kind of doesn't know how to make those in a more regulated way because you're kind of artificially stimulating those things with the caffeine. Other stimulants as well. So the same thing goes for caffeine's more of a mild one, depending on how much you're using, but same thing goes for if you're taking like actual stimulants, like um, Ritalin, Adderall, Vyvanse, obviously meth, things of that nature. High stimulating, and so that's doing it to your body too. Caffeine's a little bit more of a mild version of that, but it still does it the same. And so if you use it too much, it can really mess up your adrenal glands and give you way too more cortisol than you're needing. Also, it'll disrupt sleep patterns. So um, if I drink it too late in the evening or even in the early afternoon, it'll make it harder for me to go to sleep on time. What are the top 3 industries that you would like to see our society take our power back from? Definitely alcohol is a huge one. There's, in my opinion, almost no reason to. I mean, maybe if you need to have your leg amputated or something and you kind of like get through that if you're in war or something. There's been moments where like maybe alcohol was useful, but in general, um, there's no health benefits, from especially drinking like liquor and stuff like that. It's pretty damaging to the liver, the gut, different organs and systems in the body. And we are very over reliant on it. But I understand why. We live in a very traumatic world and we've not been taught how to deal with our emotions. And so it's just easier to kind of check out of our heads for a little bit, and alcohol makes us feel better in the moment. So I get it, and there's no shame in that. But the alcohol industry has obviously been horribly harmful to all of our health. So individually and collectively. Definitely the food industry. A lot of the stuff that's produced by the food industry, I don't even consider to be food. It's mostly just kind of toxic garbage. But it has made us believe that it's okay to eat certain things that are actually really harmful for us. and it's causing, heart disease and diabetes and strokes and, a lot of the chronic health conditions that we have today. A lot of it there's lots of different factors, but a main factor is our diet. So the food industry definitely needs to be changed for sure. And then the other one is, and hopefully people won't get too upset about this, but Western medicine in general. And there's lots of good things about Western medicine. I'm so grateful that, for especially like trauma and acute care, like if you're in a car accident or something like that, like obviously we need people that are able to help keep us alive. Like I wouldn't want it to all go away or change, of course, but it is unfortunately just it's very non-holistic. It's not looking at people, mind, body, and spirit. It's breaking us down into like just the physical and then just the different like organ systems and whatnot. And it's just not very integrated. And it's often not getting at the root causes of what's making us sick. It's just kind of like, let's get you a diagnosis and then a pill or a surgery and send you on your way. And it's like, well, we didn't actually figure out what was causing that and how to address it in like a more holistic root cause kind of way. So it's not to say that we need to get rid of Western medicine, but that it just needs to be shifted to be more holistic focused and more really understanding the different systems of the body and and the mind and the spirit and how they all work together and not just focus on pharmaceuticals and surgery. There's a place and time for those for sure, but we're a little overly reliant on them. All right, number 5. Let's see. How has your self-esteem or sense of self been affected by your pattern of use? Or for me, I feel like I'm a zombie without caffeine. I'm kind of unable to function normally without it. Um, it feels that way sometimes, and that makes me feel like my brain is broken. Or like I'm out of control. Like if I have to do my for my work and stuff like that, if I have to like write reports or anything that just is a highly cognitive task that takes a lot of mental energy, it makes me feel like I can't do those things without, drinking a matcha first or having some sort of external stimulation. So, which I do not like that. I want my body to just be able to be balanced and regulated enough to give me the motivation and the stimulation when I need it instead of having to rely on something externally. Um, and number 6, how could your relationships be improved if you were to work towards recovery or balanced use with substances or other behavioral patterns? If I wasn't chronically fatigued and had like very overtaxed adrenal glands and um, if I had a more naturally regulated dopamine system, then I would have more energy and more patience for relationships, and I would feel more emotionally connected because having being chronically fatigued and how caffeine contributes to that over time and just kind of feeling drained and not having a very well regulated dopamine system, it makes me really impatient with people. It makes it hard to pay attention more. It makes it hard for me to have the energy to like have conversations for a long period of time. And it makes it hard to feel like regulated enough to really emotionally connect with people. All right, number 7, just a little tip. So it's good to incorporate walking in balance teachings in your daily life as much as you can to help prevent yourself from engaging in harmful behaviors. Focusing on prevention methods is a key component of being able to break unhealthy habits. All right, so starting with number 8, we're going to work on these next questions to try to create a program for yourself. So the point of all these questions, now that we've kind of identified, whatever it is I'm just using caffeine as my example, but whatever it is for you, once you've identified kind of the things that you're wanting to break addictions to, going through these questions can help you figure out like how to actually start doing that, how to create like a recovery program for yourself. So the first one is to ask for help. So who could be a part of your support network to help you improve addictive behaviors? Could be family, friends, spiritual leaders, groups, a sponsor, therapist, etc. One for me would be a friend, Abraham, because he knows what it's like to recover from addiction. He knows what it's like to have to deal with cravings and feel like you're not in control of yourself. And he's also just very kind and supportive. And he's non-judgmental. He's not shameful. And I trust him to be able to give me support on that when I need it. 2, you want to identify thoughts, emotions, sensations, people, places, experiences, etc., that trigger your urge to use. For me, when I have a big like project or a task that I need to complete that requires a lot of mental energy, like I was talking about earlier, that is when I feel like I can't do it unless I have caffeine, you know. And so if I'm facing that, I will like productively I'm the best productive procrastinator you'll ever meet. Like I can, that's when I get all my stuff done in my house is when I'm supposed to be working on something else. I'll do anything I can possibly do first before that. And I feel like I have to drink caffeine before I can really sit and focus. Um, and then also when I'm like just bored or understimulated in general, kind of feeling kind of numb, then I'll really be wanting to go get a matcha or something like that. Number three, we want to create a list of more adaptive coping strategies you can start to replace harmful behaviors with. So examples include reaching out to a support network, spend time in nature, dance and sing, engage in spiritual practices, use vagus nerve stimulation exercises, engaging in mindfulness and joyful movement, or joyful mindful movement, etc. For me, I know that like if I were to not use caffeine, what I could do instead is dance. I can, before I start a task, I can dance, I can go for a walk or a jog, just something to provide like a more natural form of stimulation and dopamine and, you know, that fun pleasure to kind of get my heart rate up to help me focus better without like producing too much cortisol. Um, And then number four, it's often very difficult to remember to use positive coping skills first before turning to our maladaptive behaviors due to being emotionally dysregulated. Where could you create or keep an action plan that reminds you of healthy behaviors you can engage in when you're dysregulated and feeling an urge to use harmful behaviors? Ideally, somewhere that will be visible between you and the behavior. For example, you can set it as the background on your phone, tape it to a bottle of alcohol or the fridge, etc. For me, it would make the most sense to put it on my computer. So when I'm looking at my computer and I'm wanting to procrastinate and I don't want to sit down and do whatever strongly cognitive tasks that I need to do, I can have a sticky note that says dance, turn on some music, dance and sing, go for a jog, do something else that, you know, gets you some natural stimulation instead of drinking a matcha. Okay, then five, what are some reasons for working toward recovery or a more balanced pattern of behaviors or your motivation essentially that you could add to this action plan? For me, mine would be like I want to not have burned out adrenal glands. I want to not have high cortisol levels. Having high cortisol levels harms you in so many different ways. It's really unhealthy to have imbalanced levels of cortisol. And I have learned that the hard way. I want to not be chronically fatigued. And instead, I want to have more balanced levels of energy and stamina and more regulated dopamine system. So getting off caffeine long and it's hard at first, you know, when you first get off of it, it makes those things harder, you know, because your body has to recover from um, getting all of that stimulation and also getting it regulating yourself from an external source. And so it has to learn how to start doing that on its own and recover from the fatigue that it caused with the adrenal glands and whatnot. So it can be hard at first, but once you've gone through that process, eventually your body can kind of return back to balance. All right. And then six, are there any people or situations that would be helpful for you to avoid to decrease your chances of engaging in maladaptive patterns? For me, it would be like obviously I can't avoid work, you know, got to do those tasks, but also any really like chaotic or stressful situations that deplete my energy, because anything that really drains me, makes me feel depleted, is going to make me want to re-stimulate myself or like to get some other form of dopamine, and caffeine just like a really quick, easy way to do that without having to think too much about it. So if I can avoid being in situations that are just going to be really overstimulating, really chaotic, really draining of my energy, that would decrease my chances, decrease that craving, that desire to want to go drink caffeine. So again, those were all, I just wanted to give you an example of what it would look like to kind of answer those questions with something more concrete that I deal with, but please pause and go through those questions yourself and apply them to whatever it is that you're wanting to work on recovering from. All right, and then don't forget, like the other sections, there's a note section at the end to add additional thoughts. Sometimes, especially if you're working on, you know, at the beginning of this section, I asked you to identify the top three things that you have a maladaptive, harmful pattern of use with, and I only just talked about one, but if you actually did identify those top three things, you might need more space. to write out some of your answers. So you can use the recovery notes section to help with that if you need it.